Hey boys and girls, it is Monday, April 6th, 2020, and today we are going to do a lesson in social studies. Usually we have social studies on Fridays, but because of our post-assessment for our character studies unit, we had a last final day on Friday to complete that assessment. By the way, if there are a few friends that have not completed that post-assessment for reading, I will be reaching out to you through email today to see if I can meet you in Google Hangouts during the day today to help you complete that assessment. Today is the last day of third quarter. Can you believe that, boys and girls? The year has gone by so quickly. So, talking about social studies, before the break, we had started our unit on immigration and diversity. And so we had talked about some of the struggles and some of the benefits that face immigrants. And so if you notice, I don't know if you can see this quite as well, but our two vocabulary words were immigrants, which would be when people move to another country to live. And then we had another vocabulary word, discrimination, to treat people unfairly. And we had a lesson that talked about the struggles versus the benefits for immigrants. That meant things that these immigrants faced when they made the decision to move to a new country. And I have something that I wanted to show you today. This photo is actually of my grandfather. He was my grandpa older. And this was taken the week before he sailed for the United States from England. He was born in London and was very poor. In fact, my mom told me that this suit that he's wearing for this photo was borrowed from someone because he didn't have enough money to buy himself a suit. And so he left England, left his mom and two sisters behind, and he immigrated to Minnesota, where his uncle had a job awaiting him. So he had only $10 in his pocket when he moved to the United States and a small suitcase of belongings. Wow, what an adventure. So, boys and girls, we had talked about struggles that could face immigrants. One of the things we said was that they might be treated unfairly because they couldn't speak the language. People might try to cheat them of their money by giving them the wrong amount of money in return when they purchase things because they might not understand the currency in a country. People might also discriminate against immigrants because of their race and their religion. People might also discriminate against immigrants because they might not want that particular culture to live in maybe a rental home or an apartment, and so they may refuse to allow people of different cultures to live in certain areas. Another struggle might be that you're separated from your family. When I think about my grandfather, he never went back to England. He did always remember his mom and his sisters through writing and through phone calls as that became available, but never got to go back to England. So that separation of families. Some of the benefits of being an immigrant. You might get a better job. You might be able to make more money. You might be going and meeting a new friend or meeting your wife or husband and forming your own family. You might have a greater chance of getting an education. Maybe you would get a nicer home and have more money and have more things available to you, more shopping, more homes, more businesses that are available for you. Today, we are going to take a look at Anushka's Voyage, and this is written by Edith Tarbesco, and this is a tale of immigration. And I'm going to read the story to you, and then as you are listening to the video, I want you to think about some of the challenges or struggles that faced our characters as they immigrated to the United States. After you watch this video, you are going to find a post in Google Classroom, and I'm going to give you 3 boxes in the little Google sheet. And what I'd like you to do is jot down 3 challenges or struggles that faced these girls as they immigrated to the United States. Okay, then you're going to share that with me. Here we go. Anushka's Voyage. It says, Anya, Grandma called. Hurry, a letter from Papa just arrived. I jumped up so fast the cow swished her tail in my face. Papa's letter was filled with funny pictures. There were drawings of the doll factory where he worked and of the pigeons on his roof. He wrote, people say the streets here are paved with gold. I am saving money to buy steamship tickets for Anya and Tanya. That's when Tanya started crying. First, Mama died and went to heaven. Then Papa left for America. I put my arms around her and wiped away her tears. He'll send for us soon, you'll see. Early each morning, even before it was light, we worked around the farm. In the afternoons, we helped Grandma make puddings and potato pancakes. Before bed, we had Hebrew lessons with Grandpa, and we waited. After more than a year, 2 steamship tickets came in the mail with a letter from Papa telling us he'd meet us in New York. We're going to America, shouted Tanya, jumping up and down. I could tell that Grandma was sad, so I hugged her and said, I'll write every day and I'll draw funny pictures. The evening before we left, we had one last Sabbath dinner together. Then Grandma took the Sabbath candlesticks off the table and gave one to me and one to Tanya. I hope these will bring you good luck, she said. They were a wedding present from my mother. Grandpa gave us going away presents too. He gave me a book of Russian fairy tales and he gave Tanya a doll. Then he bent down and whispered, Don't forget your homeland, Anushka. Grandpa had always called me by my nickname. So, boys and girls, if I were filling out the form that I have for you at the end of the story, and if I were looking at a challenge for the girls as they immigrated to the United States, one of the things that I would probably write down is that people were separated from their families. You notice the girls are sad because Dad left for America and he was gone for an entire year before he was able to save enough money for the tickets. And now they're going to have to leave their grandparents. The next morning, Grandpa hitched his horse to the wagon and we drove to the train station. I tried not to cry, but I couldn't help myself. I must have looked as if I'd been peeling a bushel of onions. The train whistle blew and Grandma said, Take care of Tanya, Anushka, and remember we love you. Hold hands, added Grandma, and don't talk to strangers. Goodbye, Anushka. Goodbye, Tanya. We love you. I pressed my nose to the window, and the last thing I saw was the red scarf Grandma was waving. For a while, everything looked the same. The roads, the animals, and even the houses. Everything changed when we got to Holland. There were cobblestone streets and small brick houses. As soon as we got off the train, we were sent to a big building to be examined by doctors. There were so many people speaking so many different languages. Our ship arrived that evening. It was gigantic. I took Tanya's hand and led her up the gangplank. Don't be afraid, I told Tanya, but my heart was pounding. When we paused on the deck, men in uniform shouted, "Keep moving, keep moving." We kept going down, down until we reached the basement of the ship. It was dark and scary, especially with the engines running. So, boys and girls, the more money you had, the better the conditions that you would have on these steamships. So because they were very poor, they are way down in the bottom of the ship, whereas wealthier passengers would be up top and might even have a window in their room. We slept on thin mattresses in small wooden bunks, one on top of the other, like shelves in a closet. There were more than 1,000 people huddled together. The air smelled bad because there was nowhere to take a bath. The days were long and there was nowhere to go. A kind lady took pity on us. "Come," she said, "and bring your blankets with you." So can you imagine being on a ship for a long period of time? You can't take a shower, can't take a bath, and everybody's smushed together. 1,000 people on one of these ships. We followed her out to the third-class deck. "You can't go above," she said, making a face. "That's the rule. But you can come out here anytime you want." It felt good to breathe the salty, fresh air. A lanky man with frizzy hair played an accordion, and a short lady sang Hungarian songs. "Anushka, maybe crossing the ocean won't be so bad after all," Tanya said happily. "Look how blue the sky is, and it goes on forever." But one afternoon during the second week, the sun hid behind the clouds and the sky turned black. Then the wind started to howl. "A storm!" someone shouted, and everybody ran below. For days the ship rocked back and forth. I was cold and miserable and so seasick. I couldn't move from my bunk except to go to the bathroom. I heard Tanya calling, but I couldn't help her. Finally, the storm passed and the skies cleared. I walked to the dining room to get food for Tanya and myself. The soup was watery and the potatoes were cold, but we were so hungry they tasted good. Then I read to Tanya from Grandpa's book. Before Tanya fell asleep, I heard her tell her doll, "Don't cry. You'll see Papa soon, I promise. And he'll never leave you again. Never, ever." For a whole week, we didn't see anything but sea and sky. Then one day we heard someone shout, "I can see land. Come quickly." When we ran to the deck, a crowd was already gathered there. "I see New York Harbor," cried a short, chubby girl. "I see the Statue of Liberty," shouted a boy. He was small and skinny, and he was carrying a sack almost as big as himself. Suddenly, Tanya asked, "What if Papa doesn't find us?" "He will," I told her, but I was scared too. What if he didn't find us? There were so many people on the ship. What would we do then? There's that Statue of Liberty. I'll never forget my grandfather telling me once when I was very little that when he saw the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor, he said he got down on his knees and he cried. He was so happy to have made it to the new land. As the ship pulled into the harbor, there was so much pushing and jostling. Tanya's hand slipped out of mine and she disappeared into the crowd. Tanya, I screamed, where are you? Over here, she shouted back, over here. All I could see were long coats. The sound of Tanya's voice got farther and farther away until I couldn't hear her anymore. Then I remembered grandmother's candlesticks. I reached into my sack and pulled it out. Like the Statue of Liberty holding her torch, I raised the candlestick in the air and waved it back and forth, back and forth. At last I saw Tanya's candlestick bobbing up and down in the air as she pushed her way through the crowd. I reached out and grabbed her hand. Hold on to me, Tanya, and don't let go. Once the ship had docked, the people who were traveling first and second class got off. The rest of us were herded together and put in small boats. Someone said we were going to Ellis Island to be examined by doctors. This way, men shouted as they pointed to a long flight of stairs inside the building. Now, Ellis Island is still there today in New York Harbor. There is a awesome museum of immigration in the United States. So it's a real place, boys and girls. An elderly woman ahead of us in line turned to me and said, "Be careful, even how you walk up the stairs. If the doctors think you're sick, they will send you back. Make sure they don't put a mark on your back with chalk. It's bad." I held onto Tanya's hand tightly as we climbed the stairs to the Great Hall. But a woman pushed in between us, screaming at me in a strange language. "Anya, don't leave me," Tanya cried, but I couldn't do anything. "I'll wait for you," I shouted back as more and more people came between us. Different doctors checked our heads and our ears. Someone even pried my eyelids wide open. A doctor marked an E on the boy in front of me. The boy's mother started screaming, help me, somebody." 5 hours later, I was through, but Tanya was still moving through the maze. I waited for Tanya and worried, what if the doctors thought she was sick and sent her back? So, boys and girls, thinking about some of the struggles that the immigrants faced, that definitely would be a struggle, that you go all the way across the ocean and then they find out that you're sick and you have to be sent back to your country. Can you only imagine how hard that would be? Then I saw Tanya. I rushed over and took her hand. We were free to go to the first floor waiting room. It was full of people waiting for their relatives. "How will we find Papa?" I asked. I had his name and address pinned to my coat. But where was Houston Street? "Wave your candlesticks and I'll wave mine," said Tanya. "That's how I found you." So we did, back and forth, until we heard Papa's voice. "Anya, Tanya, I'm here. Papa hugged us and swung us around crying, Russian in Russian and in English. "Dobro pozhalovat v Ameriku. Dobro pozhalovat v vashu novuyu stranu." Welcome to America. Welcome to your new home. I think I just spoke Russian. I didn't do it very well. He was so happy. He had tears running down his cheeks. There they are. We left Ellis Island and took a ferry to the Battery. Then we traveled the rest of the way to Papa's apartment by horse-drawn trolley. And there's the streets of old New York. That night, Papa cooked a special dinner to celebrate our arrival. When Papa asked me to say the Sabbath prayer, I put Grandma's candlesticks on the table and lit the candles. Then I said the prayer. "I'm proud of you," said Papa. "You said the prayer perfectly." "Thank you," I answered. Later that night, as Tanya slept next to me, I lay in the dark listening to the strange new sounds from the street below. And I thought of Grandpa and his special way of saying, "Take care of Tanya, Anushka, and remember, we love you." And there she is, lighting the candles. And there she is, sleeping that night in her new home. The end. And actually, boys and girls, this, if you can see that, that's the real Tanya and Anushka. Look at how nicely they're dressed. Don't they look pretty? So the author of this book's mother and her mother's sister, which would be her aunt, were the main characters in this story. So, boys and girls, even though there were some challenges facing these immigrants, there were also some benefits. One, they got to be with their father, and so they were together again as a family. Two, they made it to the United States. I mean, it took them over 2 weeks, but they did it. Three, they had opportunities for a good education. Four, they were free, and they lived in a country of great opportunity. And interestingly, the granddaughter, right, or the daughter of Anushka, ended up becoming an author. So how exciting is that? Anyway, today what I'd like you to do is, once you finish the video, please go back into Google Classroom and click on the post with the document that's attached for Anushka's voyage, and just fill out 3 things that you heard me say or heard me read to you that were challenges that Anushka and Tanya faced as they came to the United States. Thanks a lot, boys and girls. And after you finish your social studies, you are welcome to spend 30 minutes reading in a Just Right Smart Spot. Have a great day.